Shabbat Shalom. In our Parashat Naso, we're already deep into the book of Bamidbar, or as it's well known in English, the book of Numbers. And I think it is beautiful to think of the book of Numbers truly as a list of all of the Jewish people. If we think about it, Parashat Bamidbar, a large proportion of it is dedicated to counting the Jewish people, seeing how many Jews are in each tribe, how many Jews in total. And our Parashat Naso, continues then by counting the numbers of the Levi'im. As it starts, our parasha starts, Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, Naso et rosh bnei Gershom gam hem leveit avotam nishpachotam. It is now the turn of the Levi'im to also be counted. Their numbers also matter. And yet, if we continue on throughout the parasha, we will find that there is another important mentioning of the tribes, but this time through the medium of the individual. If in the previous chapter we talked about the tribes as a whole, now we're talking about the tribes as represented by their Nasi, by their nobleman, by their leader, by their tribal leader. And we indeed find each one of these Nesi'im, ויהי המקריב ביום הראשון את קורבנו, נחשום בן עמינדב למטה יהודה, וקורבנו קרת כסף אחת 30 ומאה. We read through each one of the different Nesi'im bringing their korban and representing their tribe. Beautifully, and many people have talked about this, each Nasi, each leader, brings exactly the same korban. And we read through them 12 times. We go and mention every single korban. ביום הרביעי נשיא לבני ראובן, קורבנו קרת כסף אחת 30 ומאה משקלה. ביום החמישי נשיא לבני שמעון, שלומיאל בן צור ישדי, קורבנו קרת כסף אחת 30 ומאה. And we keep counting, we keep mentioning each nasi as if they're the only one. It was so easily, we could have just said, and all of the nasi'im, these are their names, and each of them brought this shopping list of different korbanot. But no, each individual gets their own specific mention in detail as if they were the only one. And I think here we find a beautiful contrast, a beautiful dialectic between the individual and the collective, between the person and the tribe or the people. This dialectic, this tightrope that is constantly taught, that is constantly being stretched between, are we treated as individuals, as persons, as yichidim, or are we treated as a collective, as a tzibur, as a group? This is one of the main axes of understanding the relationship of man to God. On one hand, man is an individual. Each person stands before Hashem. Each person davens their own personal amidah. Each person is judged on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur as the person that they are. Their neshama is a unique tzelem Elohim that stands alone. On the other hand, we exist as all of humanity. We exist as the Jewish people. We exist as the tribes. It's beautiful. We see on Yom Kippur, the Kohen HaGadol has to do tshuva for all of the different rings of civilization and his community and the Jewish people and the Kohanim and his family and himself. Each one of these is like an onion. Each one of these rings is a very important ring of influence. And we're constantly jumping between being a yachid and being a tzibur. Even in this parasha, we talk about the bracha that Hashem gives the whole Jewish people through the Kohanim. Vaydaber Adonai el Moshe lemor, daber el Aaron ve'el banav lemor, ko tevarchu et bnei Yisrael. This is how you shall bless the Jewish people. Emor lahem, say this. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichoneka. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Even though the bracha is for the collective, Emor lebnei Yisrael, the Jewish people, the bracha is personal. May Hashem protect you. May Hashem look after you. May Hashem take care of you. This dialectic, I think, is strewn throughout the parasha. And I think it's something that we are experiencing at this moment in time. We just celebrated Chag HaShavuot. Chag HaShavuot is another one of those beautiful examples of Hashem appearing to the whole nation, appearing to the Jewish people. And there's even a famous midrash that says that every single Jewish soul that will ever exist was present at Har Sinai. This is for the Jewish nation throughout history, for all eternity. And yet, As the pasuk says, "Vayichan Yisrael neged hahar." The Jewish people, as the Midrash says, "Ke'ish echad belev echad." They were like one individual. And each person had their own personal experience. Shivim panim laTorah, each person had their own experience of the Matan Torah, and yet, as a collective, they all experienced it, and yet the collective itself was like an individual. It's all playing in there, the balance between group and individual, personal and communal. In addition to that, I've been feeling recently that this is something that we're experiencing also in the world, that we're experiencing today. During the war, we constantly, check our phones and see how is the country doing? How is the Jewish people doing? Whether here in Israel or abroad, different campuses, different communities, different political factions. How is the nation? What is the situation, the state of a nation? And yet, at the same time, we are also looking at our phones for the names of, unfortunately, those who've been captured or those who've been killed or those who've fallen in battle. And each one of those is a number, is a name, but it's also a nation. That balance between looking at each soldier that dies has a name, has a family, has an identity, has a person. And yet there are also Moser Nefesh. They also gave their lives for the Jewish collective, for the Jewish people. That is, again, just another example of this dialectic, this correspondence, that constantly the seesaw between am I an individual or am I a collective? So I give us all a bracha, B'ezrat Hashem, this week, that we may feel that tension, that we may understand the complexity involved in that. That, yeah, on one hand, I am an individual, I can do the heck I like, I have my own rights, I have my own freedoms, and yet at the same time, I have my own responsibilities, I have my own connection, I am bigger than myself, I am part of a much bigger picture. And if we can appreciate the complexities of that, the challenges of that, sometimes people might feel like they want to run away, sometimes people might feel like they want to disappear into the collective. Either way, whether you want to be an extra individual, an extra group, those are normal, understandable feelings that we must learn to identify within ourselves and appreciate for what they are. And Be'ezrat Hashem, as a nation, as a community, I give us all a bracha that we understand and advance ourselves on all different planes and grow in many ways, in as many ways as we can, both as a Naso, et Bnei Yisrael, count the Jewish people, and as a Nasi, which is the individual who comes to bring the Korban. Naso, Nun, Shin, Aleph, Nasi, Nun, Shin, Yud, Aleph. Both of those are the same. They connect together. And B'ezrat Hashem, may we learn to be individuals and be Klal Yisrael at the same time. Shabbat Shalom.